I didn't want to wait till after my career to start a family. Around 35, risk factors start to go up. I kind of felt like having a baby and starting a family was more important than triathlon.
Hey everybody, I'm Christian Schaff. Welcome to the Life Uncharted Podcast. Each week we sit down with extraordinary people who have stuck their nose in the wind, stepped off the beaten path, and forged their own path to success. What made them do it? How did they succeed? And how can we follow in their groundbreaking footsteps? You're about to find out right now. Hey guys, Christian here. Today's guest is Mirinda Carfrae. Rinny is an Australian professional triathlete who now lives in Boulder, Colorado with her husband, Tim O'Donnell, also a pro triathlete. Rinny's a star. I kind of think of her as the Michael Jordan of triathlon, and rightfully so. In her 7 attempts at the World Championships in Kona, she's finished on the podium 6 times and won 3. In 2013, only 2 men ran the marathon faster than she did. As for that 1 year she didn't podium, she had to withdraw early in the race. A few days earlier, Rinny and I had actually been out on a bike ride on the course when she was struck by a car, and the injuries were just too much to overcome. Rinny healed up and then took some time off last year to become a mother, a move that likely isn't easy when you're at the top of your game. But she's now back in action this year alongside husband, Tim, and baby Izzy. We took some time last week and sat outside Tim and Rinny's Boulder, Colorado home to talk about her background, her come from behind wins, hitting a car 2 days before the biggest day of the year, deciding to have a family, and what she says to competitors when she runs past them for the lead. Rinny is one of the most thoughtful, consistent, hardworking, and at the same time, understated people I know. As a 3-time world champ, she's amazingly approachable. She'll wave at you in the middle of a race, invite you over for dinner, and even sit down and do a podcast late at night before a big training day the next morning. There's a lot to learn in this one. I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Today's promo code is Rinny, R-I-N-N-Y. It's good for $100 off our 72 survival kit at unchartedsupplyco.com. And as always, only 15 of these are available, and once they're gone, they're gone. Hurry. Well, thanks for doing this, Rinny. Welcome to the Uncharted Podcast.
Thank you.
Life Uncharted Podcast. I've been trying to just interview all my friends who are exceptional in some way and try to understand what makes them tick. And I was thinking about it, and I think, no offense to Tim, but I think you're probably one of my more famous friends.
Thank you.
Especially when I hang out with you guys around Kona. It's that's a pretty interesting experience just to have people following you around. And the thing I really thought about, and I'm jumping right into probably our most interesting moment together, was the time you got hit by a car in Kona.
Yeah.
And a couple days later, there was a website that was out taking pictures of people on the race course. And I think a piece of your bike had broken off. It was like the housing that covers like the brakes for aerodynamics.
Yeah.
And these guys didn't know that this had happened.
Yeah.
And they had like taken pictures and they were analyzing what Rinny was doing with that piece removed. If it was more aerodynamic or if it was prototype. And they had no idea.
I didn't know anything about that.
Oh, I saved it because I was like, that's...
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like,
it's crazy.
What's it like being that person where if you tie your shoe a different way, people are like, what'd you do that for?
It's still weird. I obviously, growing up, never thought I would be that person. I never thought anyone would really care about what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And that stage in Kona amplifies it. I mean, I guess anytime you're around any triathlons these days, there are people that have followed my career and Tim and our careers, and they're fans of, what we've done. For whatever reason, they're drawn to us from the struggles that we've gone through and the success we've had. And we've been pretty public in sharing how we've gotten to where we've gotten. We've been very open with people, and I think that's resonated very well with a lot of people. And
people love authenticity. You guys
absolutely.
Are super authentic.
Yeah, and I think, not everyone's as open as us. And I think, when you can have a little more insight on how someone ticks and how they're, the insight in what training they're doing and the struggles and the ups and the downs and all of those things, I think that people just relate. And when
do you think that's the attraction of triathlon, is that it's kind of life in a handful of hours?
Yeah, I mean, the struggles, the ups and downs, they're pretty clear and they're on display a lot of the time. And as I said, we put our lives pretty much on display, even more so now with the Tim and Rinny show on YouTube. So, yeah, I think that's why people follow us and they like to hear from us, because there's kind of no crap. It's all real.
It's all real.
Yeah,
For sure. So for people listening that aren't triathlon fanatics or enthusiasts, who's Mirinda Carfrae?
Yeah, I'm a professional triathlete now. I grew up in Australia, in Brisbane, one of 6 kids, fourth born. Grew up on a farm. Pretty humble beginnings. Didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, and actually started my sporting life following my brothers into basketball. Loved playing basketball, but never grew past 5'3".
At what age did that become a problem?
Pretty early on. I mean, I started playing when I was 7, probably by like under 14s. It was pretty clear that I was always one of the smallest on the team. And played, I was a good basketball player. I was never great. I don't think I had the killer instinct or the selfishness you need to be a great basketball player. I think I was more of a team player.
Killer instinct, but I feel like that's your brand, kind of.
Well, I think I was I feel like I'm a completely different person now to what I was then. And that, now I definitely have that killer instinct. But back then I think I was just a little bit more timid and shy, and I definitely grew into myself through the sport of triathlon. Moving along, I found triathlon, stumbled upon triathlon at the local gym. I was working out, trying to get stronger to handle the 6-foot girls in the upcoming basketball season. So just like lifting weights, and met a couple of triathletes. And I'd never even heard of the sport. I didn't know much about it.
And this was what, 14, 15 years old? Something?
No, I was more like 17, 18.
Oh, okay, 17, 18.
Just finished high school, was starting university, and was still playing basketball at a pretty high level. But again, I was overlooked a lot because of my height. Like literally overlooked. And also, I wasn't really a standout player. And what drew me to triathlon was the fact that it was just so hard and so gnarly. Like you swim, you bike, and then you run. I'm not even talking about Ironman. I'm talking about short course triathlon. And it just seemed like if the person that put in the most work got the results, and the person that crossed the finish line first, the person who did the most work got the results, crossed the finish line first, and nobody could take that away from them. And in basketball, there was a little bit of subjectivity in that a coach could look at a player with not that coordinated but very tall and put that player on the team, and they could overlook someone like myself, which happened a lot, who was fit and strong and able and just too short.
Do you think that put a chip on your shoulder at a young age?
Absolutely.
I have a similar experience growing up, and you're saying that, I'm like, this feels emotionally like kind of what I went through. It like shaped the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I think it's positive.
Yeah. No,
because you go, I'll show you, but if you funnel it the right way, it's great.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think you can go one of two ways, and I certainly funneled that in a positive direction and took that and just threw it into, went headfirst into triathlon and put all that energy into becoming a good triathlete. And I didn't even know how to swim when I decided I wanted to do triathlon. I mean, I could swim to save myself. I could play Marco Polo in the backyard with my brothers and sisters all day long, but swimming up and down a pool was foreign to me. I didn't own goggles or a cap, and honestly other than riding like my little BMX bike around the farm, triathlon bike riding is a whole different story. And then, I was a good runner, but I actually didn't even like running, so I don't know how it all came about. I didn't, as a basketball player and as a team player, I always looked at individual sports and running. I'm like, why do you do that? It's so painful and it's so hard and it's boring. Like,
but maybe
what's
it's
the point in
because
running?
you found something where that you would outwork people and you'd get the results that you wanted.
That's exactly
people
what
couldn't
happened.
Overlook you then, right?
Exactly. And I think
that's awesome.
That was basically what drew me to the sport. And
I would say you made it count.
Yeah, I definitely have made it count.
So at what age did you start racing professionally? If that was end of high school?
Yeah, in high school. So I finished high school in 98. I did my first triathlon in the end of 99. And so I was 18 years old.
How did that go, your very first one?
My first triathlon was really short, like a 300-meter swim, maybe a 10K bike and 3K run. So super sprint. And it was really freaking hard. I remember during the race thinking, why would anybody want to do this? This is just pure painful, like pain. Like, where's the fun? Because after playing basketball, like it's fun. Like you run up and down the court all day. It's fun. Like I never experienced pain, but in this moment, I'm like, this is just really painful. And then you hop off the bike and try to run after you've been cycling. It's awful. And anyway, finished the race. I finished third overall.
Wow.
It was a small local race, but still, third place overall. I was like, oh,
right.
Okay.
Something here.
Yeah, something here. And I think that was really the start of something for me. Like, obviously, that was not really a massive result by any means, but to me, it was like, well, I can do better than that. I only just got my bike a month ago. Now I'm going to really start training. And so, yeah, and this
is all down in Australia?
Down in Australia,
And where exactly?
Brisbane.
Yeah,
Grew up in Brisbane.
And so did you just do this for a while in Australia? I mean, we're sitting in Boulder, Colorado now, which is your home. So
yes.
At some
How
point,
did I get here?
How did you get here? But what was the path there?
Yeah, so by 2001, I made the Australian junior team, and that again I feel like throughout my career, I feel like when you're on the right path, doors open for you. Like
Totally.
The path becomes easy. Things just seem to fall into place, and that was definitely the case with triathlon. Played basketball for 11 years. I pulled on a state jersey. That was the best I ever got. Basically did triathlon for a year and a half, and I was pulling on the green and gold Australian
national
team for the junior team, but still traveling internationally. That enabled me to get into the Australian Institute of Sport team, which gave me funding to travel and race internationally, to give me that experience and also access to massage and nutritionists and sports psychologists and just experts in the field of triathlon, which really just gave me opportunity. And,
right.
I took that opportunity with both hands and learned everything I could about travel and racing. And
what kind of distances were you racing at this point? Are these Olympic distance type?
All Olympic distance. Okay. And that was probably from...
Which, for people that don't know, is...
It's a 1,500-meter swim, 40-kilometer bike, so 26-mile bike, and 6-mile run or 10-kilometer run. It's around a 2-hour event for the women, a little shorter than that. And that's what they race in the Olympics. That's why we call it Olympic distance. I basically got onto the Australian team in 2001. From 2001 to 2005, I made every Australian team. The year after I made the junior team, it was then under 23s. So I raced under 23s for a couple of years. And then I made the senior team. But being that I wasn't always a swimmer, racing against people that have been swimming for their whole lives. And for those who don't know about triathlon, short course, it's draft legal, so you get a benefit from sitting behind somebody on the bike. You save 30% sitting on somebody's wheel, 30% of your energy.
Which is massive.
Massive.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a great swimmer, so I'm always getting out of the water 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes behind the fastest girls. It's a shorter race as well, so less time for me to try and catch up. And also, I kind of found out early on that a lot of the more motivated or the athletes that were generally winning the races were good swimmers. So I'm getting out of the water with athletes from countries that were maybe less developed in the triathlon world. And these athletes were just happy to get top 20. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to win the race or, get top 10. And so it was just hard. It was just hard to try and motivate them to work with you on the bike, to try and catch the lead girls, to then have a chance on the run. So that was kind of a battle for me for the first few years. But, I learned a lot. And
the swimming thing is interesting because I always think of swimming as almost like learning a second language when you're really young. If you do it when you're like 3 or 4 or 5 years old, it's second nature and you're really good at it. But if you try to learn, like I tried to start swimming at like 32.
Yeah.
Beyond like grabbing my water ski and swimming to the boat, which is 20 feet.
Yeah.
And it's I'm no level near where you guys are, but I'm always the last guy out of the water.
Yeah.
And no matter what I do, I watch people who don't train, who took swimming lessons when they were a kid.
Yeah.
And it's weird, like how the body just programs it in.
Yeah, it's one of the most frustrating sports. If you didn't grow up doing it, you don't have that feel for the water.
Does Tim frustrate you?
He does, but he's worked really hard for it. He's by no means was a naturally talented or gifted athlete. He just has everything he has is from hard work. Right. And obviously he started swimming at a young age, followed his siblings into swimming, and he has that going from him. But he was a terrible runner when he started triathlon, and he's become a really great runner. And so, he's put the work in, and he's reaping the benefits.
Right. So you were doing Olympic distances for a while.
Yeah.
And I don't have all the dates right, but we were driving up here today. I was talking to Brad, and he said, I think the first time Rini ever ran a marathon was at Kona. Is that correct?
Yeah, my first marathon was in 2009. So 10 years after my first triathlon, I did my first Ironman, and it was in Kona.
So your first time you try to do a full distance Ironman is the World Championships.
Yeah.
What was the decision? Just like, let's see what happens?
No, absolutely. I mean, it was very planned.
It was?
Yeah, my whole...
But you didn't want to have a lead-up race to the World Championships and just see how it goes?
Absolutely. It's Ironman. Like, it's a 9-hour, 10-hour race. It takes a lot out of you. And I wanted to... I was a very good student of the sport for a long time, and I watched younger athletes go in, race Ironman races and burn out. And then I watched other athletes go in a little later, race less, and be really successful over a long period of time. And my goal was always to have a long career. I probably knew in about 2004 that I wanted to race Kona Ironman, but I waited till 2009 to race it. And,
So it was your goal for 5 years?
Yeah.
Basically?
Yeah.
But you just didn't feel that you were there yet?
No, I don't. At what?
Why wouldn't you just
at 25 years of age,
sign up and go for it and just see how you do and get a feel for it one year?
I think I probably would have done fine if I'd signed up and gone for it. But I don't think I'd be sitting here now.
Yeah.
Because I think I just respect the sport and the distance so much. And I wanted to be physically strong enough to race the distance. I could have turned up and probably raced pretty well and, top 5, maybe top 3. But I feel like my career might have been a little shorter. And I don't regret those years. I had a fantastic half Ironman career too, racing halves. I won a bunch of 70.3s all around the country and all around the world, won a 70.3 world title. And all of that training helped me prepare for Kona. And my coach as well was, we kind of remember it differently. She remembers that she was holding me back, but I feel like I didn't really want to race Kona until I was ready. And by 2009, I was 28. Is that right? Something like that. Born in 81.
And how did you do that year?
I got second.
Your first race, the World Championships, second.
Yeah.
There's not many people that have that good of a result the first year.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few for sure who have had great results off the bat in Kona. But, I want to say that I wasn't super surprised because it was planned. Like, I'd done the training. We'd spoken to all the experts. I'd been a student of the sport, as I mentioned. And I knew that I could run a fast marathon, and no one was really running much under 3 hours, and I sort of knew I could run a lot.
You knew
quicker.
that even though you'd never really run a marathon?
Yeah, I mean, but in training, I mean, I never run a marathon in training, but I'd run like 30K, 35K, and I could run. And I go back a few years. In 2005, I did ITU Long Course World Championships, which is kind of in between a half and an Ironman. And I ran like 2 hours for 30K, which is 4-minute Ks. And granted, it's still another 12K.
Right.
And another, I think, 60K on the bike. But I kind of just knew that it was there. I don't know. You have a gut feeling. And my gut was that I could run.
Do you think your killer thing about you is the preparation or the mental game? I mean, everybody knows you as a runner. Obviously, you're a very fast runner, but is there something else that, like, is your gut just never let you down, or what is it that you trust beyond anything else?
No, I think my gut. Since I started this sport, I've always listened to my gut, and my gut instinct initially was to follow this sport, and then defer university, quit basketball. All of those things put me on this path, and this path has given me everything I have right now in my life. And so, yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, things come easy when you're on the right path.
Right.
And I certainly feel like that's the path that I've been on for the last 10 years or more.
So you were second your first year, and then you've won this race 3 times, correct? That's
Yeah.
Are there anybody else won it 3 times?
Oh, yeah.
There is?
So Paula Newby-Fraser won at 8 back in the day, like 80s. Natasha Badman was winning when I first started paying attention to Kona, so like 03, 04. She won it 6 times. And then Chrissy Wellington, who won the year I got second, she kind of came into the sport as an complete. She did the absolute opposite to me. She kind of stumbled upon the sport and was amazingly gifted.
Wow.
And she won 4. So then there's me and actually Daniela, who's won the last 3 years. So there's 2 of us who've won 3. Yeah.
But that's rare.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's it feel like to be, I mean, again, like I've been with you walking around that town. You kind of own it that week.
Yeah. I don't really notice too much people around me when I'm in that space.
But when the airplane lands and you step off, what's the feeling?
I feel like I'm coming home. Honestly, I grew up in Brisbane, Australia. It's in summer. It's very humid, very hot. And I train a lot in Colorado here in the dry heat. And usually by the time we head on the plane, it's a little cooler. But I hop off that plane and the humidity just hits you in the face. Mm-hmm. And I smile. You like it? I like it. It feels good to me.
That's where you and I are very different.
Yeah. And I think a lot of athletes, and that's a massive part of that race, being comfortable in that kind of heat. And I think a lot of athletes hop off the plane and they're just like, how am I going to do this? Mm-hmm. And, So
it's a psychological advantage for you.
I think so, yeah.
For you, it's comfortable and familiar. And for others, it feels like another
planet, like you're racing on Mars.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible. So, for people that don't know, I think you're pretty well known for some come from behind runs, catching up to people. And I'm sorry I don't know the statistics exactly right, but there was one year where you had, the 3rd or 4th fastest marathon out of everybody.
3rd, yeah, fastest. 3rd. Yeah.
And in those years that you've won, you've come off the bike. How far ahead are the leaders at that point when you get off?
Well, the year in 14, I believe I was 14 and a half minutes down from the lead coming off the bike. And I was absolutely devastated hopping off the bike because the year before I'd won the race and I set the course record and I set the run course record again. And I came behind, but it was about 8 minutes. So I felt like, under 10 minutes felt doable, depending on obviously who was leading the race.
But just to think about this, 14 minutes.
Yeah.
And at the speeds you guys are running, that's 2.5 miles, maybe. You're giving somebody a 2.5 mile head start.
I try not to think of it like that.
Sure, at the moment you don't, but if we break this down now.
Yeah.
And these aren't just like some random person. These are elite athletes, the best in the world. Yeah. And you're spotting them 2.5 miles.
Yeah, I don't mean to do that.
I know you don't. How do you not throw in the towel at that point? Because every time I've watched you do it over and over. You just pick away. Everybody goes, oh, she's too far out. Then it's like, oh, this just in. She's only 8 minutes behind. And then she's 4. And then, she passed her.
Yeah, well, I think my whole career I've had to come behind. I've had to fight all the way to the finish line. Like every single race I do is a race to the finish line. I'm never in the lead from the start. And so that's 15 years of coming from behind.
So it's not over until the fat lady sings kind of thing.
Absolutely not. And in that race in particular, the 14-minute behind, I was I thought my race was over. I wanted to crawl into a hole and just call it a day. But I've given up before. Early in my career, I gave up in a race. And the pain of giving up and knowing that you just threw in the towel is far worse than any pain you'll go through in a race. And knowing that, I just would rather just go through whatever pain is going to happen on that day, and it's going to end. It's not going to happen, it's not like there's no finish line. There's a finish line, and you're going to get
there's
there.
a light at the end of the tunnel, for sure.
Exactly. And so you just have to endure that pain until that finish line. And I kind of made a promise to myself earlier in my career when I did give up and had that awful feeling, because that emotional...
What happened in that race that you gave up?
It wasn't as much that I gave up. I had such a terrible swim that I was, I think, 4 minutes behind out of the water. And back then, in ITU, it's multi-lap courses. So they're 5K laps. And the lead girls, who evidently were like just outside of Olympic qualifiers for swimming, they're really good bikers too. Generally, swimmers are really good bikers because they have a really big engine, big heart, lungs, very strong. And they were like not that far behind me. And if you get caught on the bike, then they pull you off the course.
Oh, okay.
And there's not many things more embarrassing than getting told you cannot finish the race.
Right.
And so that was kind of, and like I kind of already gave up on the bike. I was like, well, they're going to catch me anyway. And I remember just being so disappointed in myself. And that disappointment lasts. Like, that wears on your mind.
Was that a turning point in your life or your career?
It was just...
Looking back?
I don't think it was a big turning point. I think it was just more a reminder that, okay, like it's not worth it. Like, from now on, you just fight until the end. And for the most part, I always did fight until the end. But that was a reminder to, okay, yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth just calling it a day.
So humor me here. You're 14 minutes down. Your coach probably tells you this, or somebody has a sign up.
Many people tell you this. Many spectators.
Whether you want to know or not.
Yeah.
You grab some food, you put your shoes on, and what's going through your head?
I was really, as I mentioned, disappointed, and I wanted to just stop. And I ran out. So you come out of transition, you run up a short little hill and take a right. I was never going to stop, but in your mind, you're like, I'm not going to win today. And after being defending champion and having that course record, you can't really go better than that, other than winning again. So going back to back. And so I felt like a failure. So I felt like I was failing as I started the run. And then I got out, and I was probably only 400 meters into the run. And my coach, Siri Lindley, who's the most positive person on this planet, I believe, was like kind of like a little crouching tiger. She was crouched down on the side of the road. And she just said to me, like, you are in the perfect position. And I'm like, is she watching? And I was just confused. I'm like, is she watching the same race? Like, does she know what's going on? And I kind of like shook my head. And then it took me like a mile or two to get my head back into a positive space. So I was like 2 miles and when you're thinking negatively, it makes everything so much harder. You feel the heat more, you
try to find excuses to...
Yeah, why it's not going to be your day. Yeah. And it took me like a mile or two to decide, okay, well, let's see how fast you can run today. And I also was reminding myself that I looked after myself really well on the bike. I hydrated well. I took on all my nutrition. And so I knew I'd set myself up for a good run. I know I'd done the training. So I was like, well, let's just see what happens. Okay, I was 8th off the bike. My goal was top 5. And so as soon as I reestablished my goals, not to win the race, to be top 5, I felt like I was in control again. And fortunately for me, it took me about half a marathon to catch 5th. But 3rd, 4th, and 5th were running together. And so all of a sudden, from 6th place, I'm 3rd. And so halfway through the marathon, I'm on the podium.
How does your mind change? Like when all of a sudden you come over a hill or something and you're like, oh, there they are.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. No, it's a great feeling. And I think it's a much better feeling than having people chase you down, that's for sure. But that's not really something that I've had to deal with much in my career. I just obviously something that Tim has had to deal with. So I know through his
I was going to put a Tim joke in there. You beat me to it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's an amazing feeling. And it's almost like you gain more strength every time you come past somebody. You like, yeah, I don't really know how to explain it, but you're just in a positive mindset. You're moving forward and you're on the hunt.
So what did it feel like when you finally saw, was it Daniela Reef that was?
Yeah, Daniela was in the lead.
Where did you first see her and realize,
I could catch her?
Yeah.
So down in the energy lab, I passed second place, which I think was Rachel Joyce. And then I don't think I really let myself think about winning until I got into second place. And once I caught Rachel, Daniela was still a little ways ahead. I got back out onto the Queen K. So then we're talking 12K to go. And I started to think that maybe there was a possibility.
How's your body feeling at this point? Because you must be redlining.
Yeah, the last 12K sucks. It's for everyone, it sucks. It's just, yeah, I mean, everything hurts. You're thirsty, you're hot, you're tired.
I've been out there when you guys come by, your shoes make a squishing noise that you probably wouldn't ever expect unless you were standing there.
Yeah.
You guys are soaked.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like running with like you just ran through 2 feet of water.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you're dumping you're dumping water and ice on your head at every opportunity. You're sweating a lot. I mean, humidity's 90%. The temperatures on the asphalt probably over 100. So it's like an oven out there. And yeah, I mean, but
do you say anything when you pass people? Like when you pass fifth or fourth? It
depends who it is. For the most of the times, I do say something.
Do they say anything, or is it like breaking their spirit at that point?
Sometimes they do. It depends how well we know each other. If I don't know them very well, I probably wouldn't say much. Maybe just good job. If I know them well, like I know, like Rachel Joyce lives here in Boulder and has become a friend of mine over the years. I definitely, would say more to her. I think when I passed her in 14, I said something about, this is our race, we can't let this rookie beat us, or something like that. Because Rach and I had both been racing Kona since 2009 and always in the top 5. I think she had a span of, I don't even know how many years. 8 years I was in the top 5, mostly first, second, or third. Wow. And Rachel as well, second, third, or fourth. And so, yeah, having battled against her so many times, and then this young rookie comes in and is going to take the race from us. Fuck that.
Right.
And so I just sort of said something like that to her that year. And yeah, I actually ended up not catching Danielle until about 6K to go. And yeah, it's hard.
It's got to be a little awkward almost.
Yes and no. Like, those moments in the race are the most painful and the hardest, but they're the ones you kind of live for as well. Like coming up to take first place, like they're the moments you dream of. They're the moments that you train for every single day. They're the moments you get out of bed for early and struggle all year for. And so, yeah, catching her and passing her, I kind of just wanted to make it known that I was not going to let her run with me. And
would you say that's probably your proudest moment in all of your racing, coming back from 14 minutes down in the World Championships? And
mentally, I think it was my best performance. Physically, I don't think it was my best performance.
I think the mental ones are probably
more valuable. And yeah, I think they stay with you a little longer, I think. Wow. The days where things are easy are amazing because you've done the work for them. But yeah, the days where you've got to battle some demons are definitely ones you remember.
Mm-hmm. When you beat the demons.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I remember watching that and just thinking, I would love to just know what's going through your head. Yeah. A marathon's a long time. Yeah. An Ironman is times 5 or whatever,
Yeah.
So That's incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of time out there to allow yourself to either rise above or let the demons
Do you have
in.
certain techniques or anything that you use to?
No, I mostly just try to stay in the moment. I think the best way to race any race is to stay in the moment and focus on what you're doing in that moment, and then fill your mind with all the little things you need to be doing. I think as soon as you start thinking too far ahead or how hard it is or whatever, that's when things start to unravel.
I remember the next year, I think you'd pull out of the race, and then you were cheering Tim on. I remember I was standing there, and Tim went by, and I remember yelling, "Where's your booty at?"
I said
I'm
that.
sure it was a technique thing or something, but
I don't remember saying that at all.
I remember thinking, I don't know if that was like, I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if that's like the one thing that Tim, like when he gets tired, maybe his form breaks down, or that was their little.
No.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't even remember that.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing year. So that's probably the highest of highs.
Yeah.
And then next year, totally crazy, but I was with you on probably one of the crazier days.
Yeah.
And I was out working for a company I was working for, and we were just filming stuff. But we were riding out of town.
Yeah.
And I would love to think, like, I don't know if we've even really talked much about it since it happened. That's several years ago.
Yeah.
But I remember just riding from the condo you guys were staying at, you had to kind of ride through town to get out to the Queen K.
Yeah.
And you were just going to go for an easy ride, and I was going to come with and get some pictures and video.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, well, we're on the right side of the road and traffic's coming from behind us.
Yeah.
And I'll let Rinny go in front of me.
Yeah.
And then I'll quarter off to give her some space, because I was kind of felt like an F-16 flying along Air Force One. I'm like, I need to kind of create some separation for her and protect her.
Yeah.
And there's traffic both ways. And a car came from the other side and turned left coming from the other direction and just appeared out of nowhere. And I remember your brake slamming, and I will never forget the crunch of your bike hitting the front of that car. And I pulled up on you quickly. I mean, what was this, 2 days before? 3 days?
Wednesday or Thursday, Wednesday.
And so here I am you'd won 2 years in a row at that point, had 3 wins total, and probably, I would say, the most famous person on the island at that point. And you're laying on the hood of a car.
Yeah.
And all I remember is you saying, "I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here."
Yeah.
And we got your handlebars straight.
Yeah.
And there's a crowd forming.
Yeah.
I think people started realizing it was you.
Yeah.
We got on the Queen K, and you kind of made this joke where it's like, you get knocked down, you get back up.
Yeah.
What's your recollection of that day? And was that just a moment that happened and whatever? Or was that something that kind of freaked you out for a minute? Or
I think it was just, I mean, I look back on that and I feel so lucky that it wasn't any worse.
Right.
I mean, it was terrible timing 3 days before a world championship to get hit by a car.
And for people that don't know, you guys frame your whole year around that day.
Yeah.
And it's not just a race, it's your sponsorship. You have, I remember after that ride, coming back into town, your coach came out, whatever, they picked you up, they took you to an autograph signing. Yeah. Like, the show must go on. Yeah. And I don't want to say it's got to feel like the year was a waste at that point. It's definitely not. Yeah. But you've invested a lot into this moment, and then the rug gets yanked.
Yeah, it sucked. In the moment, it sucked. I'd put a lot into that race, and I was in great shape. I'd done all the training. I'd done the hard yards. But on the other hand, I've had so many great years on that island. I won 3 times, never been off the podium. The island and I've been able to perform very well on that island. And to have 1 year where things didn't go my way, I kind of feel like maybe I was just due for some bad luck. And I'm fortunate that it wasn't any worse. It ruined my race, but it really didn't take. I mean, I was a little bit banged up for a couple months after, and had to get some work done to make sure to get my back to where it needed to be.
Rini versus a car wins every time.
Yeah. But like, honestly, in the moment, I thought I was going to be okay. And it almost really didn't feel like a big deal. Like, it did feel like a big deal, but it also didn't. And when I was saying, let's get out of here, it was just that I couldn't deal with the spectacle that was was happening around us. And it was making me like more and more emotional. And leading into a race, you don't want to have any like emotional highs or lows. You can't waste your energy. And so I think I was just focusing on getting moving again. So you get hit by something or you fall down, you want to get back up and get moving to get the blood flow going, because the worst thing you can do is stop and do nothing. And so that was on my mind, and also just getting out of that scenario and moving forward.
That's an amazing perspective. I mean,
in hindsight, it was probably stupid. I probably should have just gone back to the condo and got some ice and seen a few therapists to get everything aligned, and going and doing those autograph signings. Also, in hindsight, stupid. I should have been. But again, I think in the moment I was trying to make the best decisions.
The thing for me was, it'd be one thing if some guy or some girl comes limping into an autograph session and say, despite all things, I'm here and I'm bent. Like, nobody there even probably knew that just happened to you. Yeah. Like, you weren't doing that for personal gain. You're just doing it because that's the person you are. It's like, I have to be somewhere at 2:00 for my sponsor. I'm going to be there despite my whole year just kind of changed.
Might be down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got some amazing sponsors, and they've supported me for so many years. I mean, pretty much all my sponsors stuck through me through my pregnancy, which is a year of not racing, which is what they pay me to do. And they ask a few small things from me throughout the year. And one of those things is, for some of those sponsors, is to be present in an autograph session in Kona.
That was going to be my next question is, what's it like as a woman? So now you have a child. Mm-hmm. You're at the top of your game. You decide to have a baby. That's something men don't have to deal with.
Yeah.
As a woman, is that something that you thought about for a long time? And what are the implications of this? Or was it like, I'm just going to do it? And can you walk me through what that's like?
Yeah, no, we talked about starting a family. Well, we knew we wanted to start a family. And I think earlier in my Ironman career, I always thought that I'd finish out my Ironman career and then start a family. And then as I kept racing and kept enjoying it and kept improving, I realized that I didn't want to wait till after my career to start a family. And, risk factors start to go up. This kind of, I know a lot of women sort of have this pressure that there's this window. Mm-hmm. Around 35, risk factors start to go up with complications in pregnancies. And I kind of felt like having a baby and starting a family was more important than triathlon. And that's not to say that at 40 you can't have a child, and I could have kept racing and it would have been fine, but I didn't want to take any of those risks. And yeah, I was nervous. I was nervous to tell my sponsors and the people that supported me. I didn't know if they would not pay me or if they would, cancel my, sponsorship agreement. But every single sponsor was on board. And I think I was pretty vocal in the couple of years prior to that, saying that, we want to have a baby and I will have that baby and take a year off and come back and race. So I think some of them kind of maybe knew it might have been coming, and so they weren't completely blindsided. But again, I didn't know. I mean, only one of my contracts had a pregnancy clause, and that was felt. And that contract basically reduced my salary by 25% and basically no product for that year. And we sponsors were varying from that point. So some sponsors paid me my full salary. Other sponsors decreased
I
like
almost
50%.
feel like you'd be more valuable at that point. Because that's like a real...
I agree.
As an average human out here watching what you guys do, I can't do that. But I think a lot of women could relate with What do I sacrifice if I want to start a family?
Yeah.
And I would think that a company that would support that would see a lot of value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think they need to put the resources behind that to promote, so to get the story out. And I mean, as I was saying, pretty much all of my sponsors stayed on board, and the ones that reduced my salary for that year then added another year on my contract. So I didn't really lose that money. It was just, we'll pay you. Well, basically that year will be next year. Yeah. So this year will be like a gap year. We'll pay you a little less. So I mean, I felt like it couldn't have been better. And most of my sponsors did see the value in, I'm not just Mirinda Carfrae, the professional triathlete that races. I'm also Mirinda Carfrae, the Izzy's mum.
What's the biggest difference now between Mirinda Carfrae, professional triathlete, and Mirinda Carfrae, professional triathlete, and Izzy's mom? What's changed the most?
My perspective on everything. Izzy is the most important thing in our lives, and triathlon's my passion and something that I love to do, and it's also my job, but it fortunately is my passion as well. But if I don't race well, or if the training day doesn't go well, then I really just leave it at work.
She doesn't care.
She doesn't care. And all she cares is that mummy's there and mummy's with her and I spend time with her. And I'm sure as she grows older, she'll want more mum time. But also I hope as she grows older, she can see Mirinda Carfrae, the athlete, and the dedication that I've put into something to become what I've become in the sport.
Well, she's probably going to see the dedication, but also the fact that you were there for her too.
Yeah. Well, and that's the goal. But yeah, I think, my perspective has changed in that it's just sport. Mm-hmm. Like, it's important and it's amazing to have. Honestly, we're just lucky to be able to go out there and do this. Like, I feel so lucky to get to follow my dreams and still get to follow my dreams. And if I race well and if I continue to race well, that's fantastic. If I don't and, I don't win any more world titles or don't race well in Kona, that's okay too. I've had a fantastic career. I've done some amazing things. And, now I get to come home every day and spend time with Izzy. And, I think the main thing that really has changed is not dwelling on
perspective.
Yeah, not dwelling on like little things, not sweating the small stuff. I feel like my whole life revolved around that race for a long time, over 10 years. And that was like January 1 basically till October. And even in the off season, you're thinking about that race. And now I walk away from training, I come home and I'm like, oh, what's Izzy want to do today? What color was Izzy's poop today?
She wants to eat string cheese, obviously.
Obviously. She just wants cheese and mummy.
It's interesting. I remember one time, I can't remember where it was, but we were talking about something and I asked you how's it going, and I think you said, I suck. And I think it was just kind of an offhanded comment. Yeah. I was like, Rennie, you have 3 world championships. I don't think you can say that. Yeah. And it's funny because I have another friend who's a multi-time world champion in some other sports. And she kind of had the same thing. She has these moments where she's like, she's been injured a lot. And she has these moments where she's kind of just doubtful about her ability to perform again. Yeah. And I'm like, I remember telling her, I'm like, you have to remember that you have been a world champion, not once, but several times. Yeah. And that doesn't go away. Ever. Yeah. Does it feel like? But I think is it more daunting to try to get back? Because you've been there. You can get there.
Yeah, but I think that's the nature of the professional athlete. They're generally pretty insecure. Like,
really?
Yeah, I think so. I think that insecurity drives them to do the work because. Yeah, like coming back from having Izzy, I'm like, I don't know if I could ever like run like I did before again. And in fact, it's only been the last 2 weeks that I've started to feel my old run come back. It's taken, Izzy's 10 months old now, almost 11. And yeah, I mean, you don't see it for a while and you're like, maybe it's gone. And I've spoken to so many phenomenal athletes and, they'll have like a few off days and all of a sudden they're like, maybe I'm done. It's like, it's the end of the world. It's so ridiculous. But I think some of that comes from just training hard and being fatigued and not being able to step back.
You also just made a human. I mean,
yeah,
probably takes a minute, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you feel like 10 months later, you're feeling like the old Mirinda Carfrae?
Yeah, I mean, the fitness is not quite there yet in the run, just because we were pretty conservative in my running and the amount I ran earlier on in my comeback. But now, in the last few weeks, I'm back to running my normal mileage, and just the rhythms come back a little more, and the pop in my step has come back a little more. It just feels like more fluid. And yeah, the first few runs felt absolutely horrible. And yeah,
I mean, imagine.
You just kind of take for granted, like, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years of running like that.
You've never had a break that long, probably.
No, absolutely not. I've never been that unfit in my life. I'll say that.
Did that bother you? Or were you able to just accept that?
I kind of reveled in the challenge.
Of being unfit?
Of trying to climb back up. That many years of doing the same thing. I mean, my last year in Kona was 16, and mentally I was over that race. I was like, I crossed the finish line and I said, Tim, I can't do this race next year. It's time to start a family. And that's not the reason we wanted to start a family, but I'm like, I need a year off. And, I knew that starting a family was somewhere around that window. And I'm like, let's have a baby. And he's like, absolutely, let's have a baby. And yeah, I mean, it couldn't have come at a better time. I mean, we were pregnant like 2 months after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is kind of remarkable considering how lean you guys are and how in shape and how much stress you're putting your body under, right?
Yeah, no, but I think you can put your body under a lot of stress, but if you feed it well, and I mean, I've always been very good at taking small breaks throughout the year. I don't ever train myself into a hole. Well, I shouldn't say that. I definitely have done that a few times, but I mean, I never missed a cycle. I mean, a lot of women who train so hard and get so lean that their body's under that much stress that they don't have their cycle, their menstrual cycle. And I've never had that happen to me. And so my body isn't under that much stress, or I haven't put it under that much stress that it's gone into crisis mode ever. And so I think that, yeah, I mean, while I'm at the top of my game, I'm still healthy. And there's a difference between being at the top of your game and healthy and at the top of your game and unhealthy.
And about to snap.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, we've always erred on the side of caution there. So.
Wow. So I know you've got to get to bed. You got to work out tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Now that you're a mom, your attention's focused on her. Mm-hmm. And like, what's your hope for her and like your family looking forward? Like, what's the dream?
Plan?
Yeah.
We'd like to have one, maybe two more babies. Give Isabel some siblings. And I don't know when that will happen. Obviously, I plan to race this year, definitely next year as well. And then beyond that, whether we have one more baby and then come back and race again, or race another year and then have a baby, or race a year, have a baby. Who knows what the plan will be beyond 2019. But yeah, I mean.
Beyond racing, do you guys have an idea of what the next chapter looks like? Or you coach people or? Yeah,
like we go back and forth on what we want to do post-career. I'd love to stay here in Boulder. I'd like to make this our home moving forward. So figuring out how to make that work is kind of the goal. What that will entail, whether that be coaching, running training camps, or something completely different. I feel like part of me doesn't really want to think about the next chapter while I'm still racing. Because I think when you start thinking about what's next, you're kind of 1 foot out the door.
Right.
And I feel like racing Ironman at the top level requires your 100% commitment. And so I'm kind of in that mindset and I also believe that something will come up. There'll be some
Absolutely
opportunity, or
as you said earlier, when you're on the right path, doors open.
Yeah.
So.
And I believe that when it feels right, I'll know it.
All right, final question. You were sitting over here while Tim was describing how you guys met and the courtship and dating and first dates. And for those of you that didn't hear Tim's interview, just go download that one and listen. But how accurate was that?
Yeah, I didn't remember him that first time we met in Noosa, Australia.
When he had his shirt off?
When he had his shirt off. Apparently had his shirt off. I don't remember that. And then the second time we met, it wasn't exactly accurate. I had never had an IV before in my life. And I finished the race, and I had another race the following weekend. And I remember another athlete, Joanna Zyger, who's a professional triathlete. I think she finished second. And she'd just walk back, and she had a patch on her arm. I'm like, do you get an IV? And she's like, yeah, they're just giving them out to everyone over there. They're students. And I'm like, oh, I've never had one. And she's like, well, you should go get one. You're racing next weekend. It'll help you recover. And I'm like, really? And so I go over there, and there's these nurse students giving these IVs, and I was so dehydrated. Lubbock, Texas, in the middle of June.
Yikes.
It was like ridiculously hot. And so my veins, I guess, were really small, or they had massive needles. But this student was just stabbing me. And I'm like horrified because she's not getting it in where it's supposed to go. Anyway, I guess Tim spoke to me at that point when I'm getting my first IV ever, and this student is like hacking my arm open. So that was kind of more on my mind than meeting a cute guy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But I guess he saw that I was out of it. I was more like freaked out that I was getting this IV from a rant. And in the end, the supervisor had to come and do it. And and I'm like, okay, I'm not getting an IV again.
But you guys eventually connected.
Yeah, no, we did. And then the rest of the story is accurate. We met in St. Croix, and he came and sat next to us.
I think actually I met you guys at St. Croix a few years later.
Yes, you did. You came to St. Croix and met us. Yeah, it was a great race and such a fun island.
It is cool.
Yeah, I'm sad that race is actually no longer around, but we have some friends on the island, so at some point we'll have to take Izzy over there and show her where we met.
Are there any destination races out there that you haven't done that you just
that I'd like to do?
Yeah.
At this point, I've done most of the big ones that I'd love to do. I'd love to do, Ironman Bustleton, but it's in Australia. So it's not really...
It's coming home.
Yeah. But Cairns, Australia was one that I wanted to do, and I did that this year. I can't... Ironman France is in Nice.
Cool.
And my first long course race, I think... Actually, I told a lie. Before I said 05, but in 04, I did Nice, and it was long course that same distance. And it was the most amazing bike course, like 25K up climbing and then descents and switchbacks and like a stage in the Tour de France.
Wow.
I'd love to go and do that Ironman someday.
Cool.
Yeah.
Rinny, thank you for the time.
My pleasure.
It's pretty late.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm compromising you guys, but I really appreciate it.
I got an easy day tomorrow, so it's all good.
So where can people find you online that aren't in the triathlon world?
So we have a YouTube channel. It's called The Tim and Rinny Show. I'm also on Instagram at Mirinda Carfrae. Come check us out. And we'd love to try and entertain you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
You.
All right.
Yeah, awesome.
See you next time.
Thanks.
Wow. What can I say, Rinny? Just one of my favorite people. I've often thought about signing up for a full Ironman, but there's a big difference between completing and competing. To run down the fastest woman in the world from a 14-minute deficit in 100% humidity at the World Championships is something we may never see again. And her perspective on motherhood and what's important is something I just respect so much. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, her husband Tim is in the hot seat. Let's see how their dating stories match up, shall we? All right, guys. Till then, take care.